On August 13, 2025, the United States Supreme Court delivered a historic ruling that sent shockwaves through the nation's legal and economic landscape. The decision, closely watched by lawmakers, business leaders, and international partners, marked a pivotal moment in the ongoing debate over the balance of power in American government. In a move that fundamentally changed American trade policy, the court's ruling directly impacted the flow of goods into the country and the way the United States engages with the global economy. For years, tariffs had been a central tool in the White House's approach to trade, affecting everything from raw materials to finished products. The Supreme Court overturned President Trump's sweeping tariffs, declaring that the executive branch had overstepped its authority by imposing broad trade restrictions without explicit approval from Congress. This landmark decision not only reversed a signature policy of the previous administration, but also set a new precedent for how trade decisions are made in the future. The decision immediately ended tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars in imports, sending a clear message that the power to tax and regulate commerce rests with Congress, not the White House. Lawmakers from both parties acknowledged the significance of the ruling, which reasserts the legislative branch's constitutional authority over trade. By closing a legal loophole that had allowed presidents to bypass Congress, the court reaffirmed the separation of powers at the heart of American democracy. Legal scholars hailed the decision as a vital check on executive power, ensuring that no single branch can unilaterally reshape the nation's economic relationships. For businesses, the ruling opens the door to seeking refunds for billions paid in tariffs over recent years. Small business owners and large corporations alike are now reassessing their finances, while consumers may soon see relief from rising prices on everyday goods, from groceries to electronics. America's allies, many of whom were targeted by these tariffs, have welcomed the decision as a return to more predictable and collaborative trade relations. The ruling is expected to ease tensions with key partners and restore confidence in the stability of U.S. trade policy. Now, all eyes are on Congress as it takes up the challenge of crafting new trade laws. The future of U.S. trade policy hangs in the balance, with lawmakers, businesses, and global partners watching closely to see how America will navigate this new era of economic governance. President Trump's aggressive tariffs marked a sharp break from decades of U.S. economic strategy. 50% duties on all goods from Brazil and India hit everything from food to electronics, disrupting global supply chains. The administration claimed trade imbalances threatened national security, but economists were skeptical, especially since the U.S. had a trade surplus with Brazil. The tariffs cost American importers over $67 billion, costs largely passed to consumers. Businesses face soaring costs, supply chain chaos, and impossible planning conditions. The tariffs strained relations with key allies and triggered retaliatory measures, escalating into a broader trade conflict. This set the stage for a legal challenge questioning the very foundation of presidential power over trade. To impose these tariffs without Congress, the Trump administration invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. IEEPA was meant for true emergencies like freezing assets of hostile regimes, not for broad import taxes on friendly nations. The administration argued trade deficits were a national emergency, unlocking vast executive powers and bypassing traditional checks and balances. Legal experts and Congress objected, warning this interpretation dangerously expanded presidential authority. The controversy became a constitutional showdown over the limits of executive power, a question only the Supreme Court could settle. States and businesses quickly challenged the tariffs in court, arguing the president's use of IEEPA violated the Constitution's Commerce Clause. Attorney Neil Katyal warned that unchecked presidential power to tax was fit for monarchs, not presidents. Lower courts ruled against the tariffs, and appeals judges doubted Congress ever intended IEEPA for this purpose. The administration insisted the tariffs protected American strength, but critics saw it as judicial pressure. The Supreme Court took up the case, recognizing its profound national importance. At stake, not just billions in tariffs, but the very definition of power in American government. On August 13, 2025, the Supreme Court delivered a landmark decision, ruling that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, cannot be used by the president to unilaterally impose sweeping tariffs on foreign goods. This case, closely watched by legal scholars and policymakers alike, addressed the limits of executive authority in matters of trade and economic policy. The court's majority opinion reaffirmed a foundational principle. Only Congress has the constitutional authority to levy taxes and set the nation's trade policy. This decision underscores the importance of the separation of powers, ensuring that no single branch of government can override the will of the people as expressed through their elected representatives. In their deliberations, the justices decisively rejected the argument that trade deficits alone constitute a national emergency under IEPA. They emphasized that the law was never intended to grant the executive such broad and unchecked powers over the economy. By restoring the traditional balance of power, the court's decision ensures that major economic policies, especially those with far-reaching consequences, must undergo rigorous debate and receive approval from Congress, rather than being enacted by executive order alone. This ruling marks a significant check on the recent trend of expanding presidential authority, particularly in the realm of economic and trade matters. It sends a clear message that the president's powers are not unlimited, and that the Constitution's checks and balances remain vital. As a direct result, the tariffs imposed on imports from Brazil, India, and more than 90 other countries are immediately voided, bringing relief to global supply chains and international trading partners. For American companies, this means the opportunity to seek refunds for billions of dollars paid in tariffs over the past several years, offering a much-needed boost to businesses large and small across the country. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's verdict establishes a new, stable baseline for U.S. trade law and international relations, reinforcing the rule of law and the enduring strength of America's constitutional system. The tariff's economic impact was swift and widespread. Consumer prices rose as importers passed on the steep duties, with inflation indexes climbing over 2.5%. Job growth slowed, with only 106,000 new jobs added between May and July 2025, well below expectations. The uncertainty from sudden tariff changes paralyzed business planning and investment. Companies faced constant anxiety, unsure which products or countries might be targeted next. The $67.5 billion tax increase hit U.S. businesses and consumers hardest. Studies showed they absorbed over 85% of the cost. Foreign exporters bore little of the burden, debunking claims that other countries would pay for the tariffs. The policy's true cost was felt at home, in higher prices, and lost economic momentum. The Supreme Court's decision reshapes both U.S. government and global trade. Congress regains its constitutional authority over trade, ending years of ceding power to the executive. Lawmakers must now debate and legislate America's trade strategy, spurring a new era of legislative activity. The presidency faces clear limits. Future tariffs require transparency, justification, and congressional approval. America's allies welcome the return to predictable, rules-based trade, restoring trust and stability. Shipping rates are already falling as markets adjust to the end of tariff uncertainty. Over $100 billion in potential tariff refunds could boost U.S. importers and global trade. The ruling signals a new chapter of stability and cooperation in international commerce. The Supreme Court's decision sparked strong reactions across the political and economic spectrum. Trump supporters decried the ruling, arguing it weakened the presidency and left the U.S. vulnerable to unfair competition. Business leaders and industry groups celebrated, calling it a victory for stability and the rule of law. Many welcomed the end of uncertainty and the prospect of tariff refunds to reinvest in growth. Legal scholars praised the decision as a landmark for constitutional checks and balances. Some Republicans joined Democrats in supporting the ruling, while others vowed to fight for more executive authority over trade. The stage is set for a new political battle over the future direction of American trade policy. The Supreme Court's decision marks a pivotal turning point for American democracy and the nation's role as a global leader. This historic ruling is more than a legal milestone. It's a reaffirmation of the core values that have guided the United States for generations. By addressing the balance of power between the branches of government, the court has set the stage for a new era of transparency and accountability. By returning taxing authority to Congress, the court strengthens the democratic process and ensures that the voices of the people are heard through their elected representatives. This move not only reinforces public accountability, but also restores a vital constitutional principle that has shaped American governance since its founding. For everyday Americans, the end of tariffs promises much-needed relief from rising prices on essential goods, groceries, and household items. Families can look forward to a more stable economic outlook with less uncertainty at the checkout counter and greater confidence in their financial future. Businesses, both large and small, can now plan and invest with greater certainty. This new environment supports job growth, encourages entrepreneurship, and opens the door to new opportunities for workers and communities across the country. With this responsibility, Congress now faces the challenge of crafting a modern, effective trade strategy that meets the demands of a rapidly changing and complex global economy. Lawmakers must work together to ensure that American interests are protected while fostering innovation and competitiveness. The debate and decisions that lie ahead will shape not only America's prosperity, but also its influence and leadership on the world stage. The choices made in the coming months will echo for generations. This landmark ruling reaffirms the rule of law and the enduring strength of U.S. institutions. It is a testament to the resilience of American democracy and the checks and balances that safeguard our freedoms. The United States remains a nation governed by laws, not individuals, a principle vital to justice, equality, and liberty at home and abroad. As this new chapter unfolds, America's commitment to democracy and the rule of law stands as a beacon for the world.